Hello there. The nuclear deterrent is not at issue here. What failed was our economic deterrent. Many people, including the President of Venezuela, are blaming NATO and Western powers for the Russian invasion of Ukraine, saying that the West pushed Putin too hard, amongst other things, while others say it's proof that the NATO nuclear deterrent doesn't work and that it should be scrapped, studiously ignoring the fact that Ukraine is not in NATO, so cannot rely on NATO defences. And I've got to point out that on that basis, the European Union has also been shown to fail. Anyway, what the West did do was warn President Putin that it would use massive economic sanctions against Russia were an invasion to take place. And that is the deterrent that did not work, because to point out the obvious, our threats of economic sanctions did not deter the invasion. Neither have they made him reverse his decision and retreat. And it appears that Putin thought that either we'd only pay lip service to sanctions, or that we'd never get enough countries around the world involved, or that the Russian economy was so intertwined with the global economy, with things like oil and gas as well as other commodities like wheat and metals, that we'd never really risk it, or that he'd prepared so well it wouldn't dent him much, or that the West, especially its politicians, had become weak and decadent and would not want to take the economic and political pain. Or was it the threat of sanctions that tipped him into the invasion? Or a mixture of all of the above? But I think the Western powers have been far more successful with sanctions than they actually thought they would be. Oligarchs are starting to feel the squeeze. Russian interest rates have doubled. Its sovereign debt has been reduced to junk level, with the markets expecting a Russian debt default. And the ruble has tanked on the international markets, and major companies and investors are pulling out of Russia. Now, Russia might be a king in the commodities markets, but it needs to import what the rest of the world makes from those commodities, and its citizens are having to pay a lot more for the privilege. For example, with the South Korean-based Samsung, Russia's largest source of mobile phones, as well as Apple, pulling out of Russia, the next in line is the Chinese firm Xiaomi. But the ruble has fallen by more than 25% against the Chinese yuan, and Bloomberg says Russian demand for Chinese goods will deteriorate as a result, and today the FT reports that Chinese smartphone shipments to Russia have plummeted. And according to the report, efforts by the Chinese President Xi Jinping and President Putin to cozy up together is not shielding Chinese companies from the fallout of Western sanctions. And it is also hindering any moves by Chinese companies to make hay in Russia while the sun shines for them as Western companies leave. They cannot fill the gap because of this. Now, I would surmise that had President Zelensky rolled over on day one and handed Ukraine over to Putin, then these sanctions would probably have been thinner, less well supported and possibly short-lived. Something Putin might have been relying on. But the question I have is, would Putin have gone for it had he realised the full effect on his country of these economic sanctions? Or had he priced this level of pain in right from the start? Or is it really all or nothing for him now?